In the comments of my last video, I was asked to make crates. I know, crates? But they're not just useful, they're constantly useful. You throw them on a map and you've got cover terrain, you've got something for enemies to hide behind, you throw them up against a wall, hidden door behind that wall. What's in the crates? Whatever the DM decides to put in there. You could use them to lift terrain pieces, you could do box stacking puzzles, any number of things, constantly useful. And this is how Fig makes them. We're going to start out by cutting 1-inch strips from our craft foam. Since the ruler I'm using is exactly 1 inch thick, that makes this step pretty quick and easy. These are also really easy to mass produce, so I wound up making a whole bunch of them in one day. The foam we're using is 1/8 of an inch thick, so we'll have to take this into account by removing double this from our pieces to account for the ends. We could, in theory, cut them to 1 3/4 inches, but in practice I find it's just easier to cut them to 2 inches and remove that slice later. We're also going to remove strips from 2 of these of 1/4 of an inch lengthwise. You'll see why when we go to assemble them in just a moment. Here we're marking the foam at 1/4 of an inch from the end. This has to be done so that when we add the 2 end pieces, the whole crate will have an overall length of exactly 2 inches. After all this is done, just make yourself 2 squares of exactly 1 inch and we're ready to put this thing together. Taking a hot glue gun, we're going to attach 2 of the thin lengths to 1 of the thick lengths. Then we attach a second thick piece to the top of those 2, and we're almost done. We're going to leave the hot glue to harden for just a moment. After that, it's just a matter of hot gluing on the top and the bottom, and the hard part is over. All I'm doing here is using the hot nib of the glue gun to smooth down any bubbles I have left over. There was also a point where 2 of my edges didn't meet perfectly, so I put a bead of hot glue on and then smoothed that down. For the smaller 1-inch cube crates, we're going to follow pretty much the same steps, but this time we're going to start out by cutting 6 squares per box. I've started by numbering the pieces so you can see what's being done to what. Again, we'll mark out 1/4 inch slices, just 1 on number 2, and 2 at right angles on number 3. Just like last time, we'll cut along those lines and we'll end up with the 3 types we'll need to start assembling our box. The construction of these is a little different from last time. We're going to start by attaching both number 2 sides to one of the 1-inch squares labelled number 1. We need to try and get these as close to a right angle as we can. Our next step will be to slot the number 3 squares into the gaps left over. This can be a little tricky and I can almost guarantee getting hot glue all over your hands at this stage, but after this it's just a matter of putting the last piece on top and we're finished. Again, fill in any gaps you find with hot glue and smooth out any lumps and bumps. Then just leave it to cool and it's ready for paint. I'm coating this with a raw umber. It dries pretty quickly, so we got a second coat about an hour later. Using a scrap piece of foam board, I eyeballed a line around the edge in terracotta and a crossbeam diagonally across, and that's it. In the end, I didn't love the contrast between those two colours, so I wound up doing them again in a burnt umber and a yellow ochre. That's what you see here at the end. So there we have it. Quick and easy scatter terrain that you can make in minutes and will last you for years. If you like what you saw here, leave a thumbs up and subscribe to see what Fig makes next.